Hello, my name is Dionyssis Dimitrakopoulos and I'm recording this short video clip on the 15th of June 2020 as my brief contribution to the virtual workshop that the Center for the Study of Internationalism at Birkbeck is organizing for later this month. The question that I will seek to answer very briefly is: what is internationalism in my field of research today? One can say that internationalism amounts to enlightenment and reason in my field of research, which is the study of European integration and in particular the operation and development of the European Union. The pandemic has reactivated a conflict that appeared to have subsided since 2015-2016 and the crisis in the Eurozone. This conflict pitches two competing camps against each other about the future of the European Union. On the one hand, we have the supporters of what one could broadly call neoliberalism, who argue that if economic assistance is to be provided to weaker member states of the European Union so that they can then cope with the devastating consequences, economic consequences of the pandemic, this assistance should take the form of loans, not transfers or grants. On the other side, and of course it should be associated with conditions, strict conditions. On the other side, there are the supporters of what one could call regulated capitalism, who argue that precisely because most of these countries are heavily indebted and economic conditions in which they find themselves are getting worse by the day, assistance to be meaningful has to take the form of grants, not loans. So what is interesting about this debate in relation to the EU and the study of internationalism more broadly is that perhaps for the first time in the last 10-12 years it pitches much more explicitly these two groups against each other, but in a way that defeats the argument of the former camp, the supporters of neoliberalism. Decapitated in a way by the departure of the UK, but also significantly weakened by a major change introduced by the German government, the former camp appear to be losing the game, partly because the arguments used against them by the supporters of the opposing camp are couched in the terminology and the logic that they themselves have been using in the past. For example, the idea that any other form of aid would be politically toxic domestically is exactly the kind of argument that, for example, the Italian Prime Minister is using at the time in order to oppose what countries like the Netherlands, for example, are seeking to do, which is to provide loans to countries that are already heavily indebted. So it's a very good opportunity, this virtual workshop, it's a very good opportunity for anybody who studies the European Union to think about the study of internationalism and to shed light from our perspective on its actual meaning and operation today.